All right, in this last demo, we are going to talk about how students in the past have used the dynamic grid in their designs, and we'll talk about the project and how you're going to use it. So, in this project, you're going to be designing three spreads. One spread will be for each of your first three projects, and each spread will use a different dynamic grid. And the reason why I want you to do that is because I want you to explore the possibilities. So, um, looking at this design, at this grid, we can see right away that it's pretty complex, probably more complex than it needs to be. Like these 4 lines in here, 3 lines here, there's a whole bunch of lines in here. You don't want anything that complex because the grid becomes too stratified and it starts to get too complicated, and the divisions become arbitrary almost. So in this case here, I think she was just trying to find everything, but in reality, you don't want to find everything. You only want to find what you need and nothing more than that. So although her layouts ended up looking very, very nice, I think what she was probably trying to do here was she was trying to find a dimension for her alleys. And so since alleys are not built into the dynamic grid, you have to eyeball them and determine what an alley division would look like. So here's her project one. A lot of stuff because, she did a lot of variations. That's the design without the grid. And you can see how cool it looks. I mean, you can't do designs like this with the standard grid. It's just not possible. Here's a project two, a simpler grid, a little bit more like what I'd expect to see on the in that division. Okay, so then very nice design. Here's the grid. It looks like, did she move things around? It looks like she moved things a little bit from, yeah, she did. But you get the idea. And again, this is an active grid, okay? And so it needs to be handled actively. In other words, if something is in a module, it stays in the module. It's aligned to 3 sides of the module. It doesn't float. Everything has to be aligned. And then you look for alignments that help your eye to feel the structure. Because if you just use everything and everything's all flying around, what's the point in having the grid? The grid's there to help you to organize your spaces. Okay. Also a nice design, probably a little complicated right in here, but we'll see what you did. Again, really pretty. And again, these grids are really useful for a lot of content. If you've got just a couple things, it's almost arbitrary. But you can see how she really did use those divisions, and so everything was there for a reason, and it's just really beautiful. And then it's also nice to have a title page on your project. Her grids are a little more basic. There's the layout, there's the grid, but they work very nicely, so it's clear she did a really good job with that. This one, a little complicated, right? There's a lot going on here, so let's see if she actually used that stuff or not. And kind of did. I mean, you could see she was trying to get away with, but there's things like she didn't use, like that line there. And it looks like she did cut that out of the other design. So, you just want to be careful not to have too many structural elements. Okay, that's the main thing. Okay, and there's our project 3. You can see the primary, the parent rectangle, and then the primary, which was it looks like maybe a root 2 or maybe a 3. And then here's her magazine layout project. The body text should come from the project sheet, from your design reflection statements, and anything else you can think of. Okay. So very, very pretty project there. Here we see a nicely designed, pretty straightforward grid, but it works well. And you can see how nice that looks, right? In the grid, you're like, oh, that's kind of busy. And then you see it and you go, wow, that's nice, right? And you can see how clearly the grid helps you to keep your space organized. Like this is really quite pretty, and you can even see it without the grid. And you're like, oh, wow, nice, right? And like I said, you can't do this kind of layout without a dynamic grid. Okay, and you look at that and you go, oh, wow, nice. Okay, so here's another design. Don't love this title sheet, but whatever. And what you do then is on your first spread, you have a title and you have your grid construction. So I can see how you built your grid. And then after that, I don't need to see the diagonals anymore. Okay. It's like, wow, that's nice. And then here, same thing. And what some people have done, let me just go back to this one for a moment. This is how I actually like it to be done. I like the first opening spread to be the grid with the diagonals. Then the second page of the first spread is the structure, is the grid without the diagonals, and it's a title page for the project. And then you see it with grid on and grid off. Okay, so structural diagonals removed, off grid, on grid, off grid, on grid. Okay, so let's see. And so then anyway, we're just kind of cruising through these. I want to make this quick. More of an open design, but it still looks nice. Here's the magazine spread. Okay, and then here's another final design. This one's a little more straightforward. The grid, however, looks like it's nicely designed. The layout is open and clean, not as crowded as the other designs. So there's a nice feeling of openness and flow. But again, you'll never see this kind of layout with a standard grid. It won't happen. But notice how good it looks. I mean, these really are handsome layouts. And people are going to go, God, how'd you do that? It's the dynamic grid, my friends. Okay. In our last sample project, again, simple, nice clean grid, not overly complex. Grid on, grid off, right? Another nice project. Very nicely done. And project 3. Notice people are exploring horizontals, squares, and vertical layouts, so I encourage you to try all of those. Okay, so there are some sample projects, some grids. Study these and get some good inspiration.